Hi everyone, I'm Danielle. Welcome to City of Renton's Permit Ready ADU program. Just a few instructions. If you're calling in by phone and you want to raise your hand, please press *9. And if you need to unmute yourself, please press *6. We have our chat, so if you have any questions, please type them in the chat and I will be monitoring that and letting Katie know that somebody has a question.
And it looks like we still have some folks in the waiting room. I'll just give them another few seconds or so, or we can get started, I guess, actually. So yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Again, I recognize a lot of familiar names as I've chatted with you over the last several months about this ADUs in our Permit Ready ADU program, either over the phone or over email. So it's nice to put a face to the name and see so many people here today on a Saturday. And I think I failed to introduce myself, but my name is Katie and I'm a long range planner at the City of Renton, and I'm the staff person that was assigned to updating the city's ADU development regulations and streamlining our application process. And I spent the last year or so working with the architect that the city contracted to develop our ADU plan sets and to develop our Permit Ready ADU program, or PRADU program as we're calling it. And we designed that really just to support applicants who wish to use those plans, and which is why you are all here today. And I've already introduced myself, but I am very fortunate to be here today, joined by several key staff people this morning, including Brittany Gillia and Scott Warlick, who will be implementing the program and working with our future ADU applicants. Also, and Al Finley from the building department, who is our building plans reviewer, who has ensured that the models comply with the International Residential Code and make sure that they're structurally safe and sound. And there are lots of other folks here from our department, and I'm really happy to see them as well. So thank you, Vanessa and Chip and Angie. And last but not least, Danielle Marshall, who is running things for us behind the scenes for us today. So if you are having troubles with technology or you have a question, go ahead and submit those. She'll also be here to help moderate and collect those questions and just make sure that things are running smoothly for us. After more than a year or so into COVID, many of us are now accustomed to meeting virtually on Zoom or Teams or some other platform, either weekly, if not on a daily basis. But if this is new to you, please know your microphones and cameras are currently turned off, and that's by default. And that's just to ensure that there are not any distractions throughout the presentation portion of our time together. But there will be the opportunity to participate and ask questions throughout the presentation. Just a few technical logistics. Hover your mouse, or if you're on your smartphone, touch your screen and look at the bottom of your Zoom window. You'll notice, if you have the most recent version of Zoom, hopefully, you'll have a couple of different functions. First, try and locate the reactions button. If you click that button, it should be on your right-hand side. You should have the option to clap or give a thumbs up, and most importantly, have the option to raise your hand. Go ahead and click that button now. I just want to make sure that everyone has access to it if you want to verbally ask a question at the end of the presentation. And please feel free to submit questions through the chat also throughout the presentation. And to test that function, actually, I would like, so I've done a really high-level introduction of ourselves, but I'd like to get to know those who are joining us today and also take the opportunity to test this chat function. So if you could, would you just put your name, please, and maybe a few words why you are here today? And we'll give you a minute or so just to put that in the chat. All right, thank you for putting in your introductions, and please continue to put that information in there and put questions in there throughout the presentation. Please also remember that this meeting is being recorded and then becomes a public record, and that includes, information that is submitted to the chat room. So we're not done getting to know each other. I wanted to do a quick poll. So on your screen, there should be a pop-up coming up, which will give you the option to answer a couple of questions that we'd like to ask you today. And this polling information is anonymous, just so you know, so it doesn't collect your name or contact information or IP address or anything like that. So we want to know why you're interested in building an ADU, whether it's for yourself or a home for a family member or a way to generate supplemental income, build a rental unit.
Hey, Katie, I did see one person in the chat ask what ADU stands for.
Oh, I apologize. I'm so sorry. We're just so planner speak comes out. So an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit, and it is a smaller secondary unit that is on a lot with a primary residential home. And we'll cover that. I think it's in our next slide, really breaking down what an ADU is and how we define it. So we'll take a few more minutes just to collect the poll questions. So there should be 4 in total. We also want to know what size ADU you're interested in building. We have a range of options with our permit ready ADU plans as well. So we have about 87% of attendees participating. That's great. Thank you for responding to the poll questions. We also, just to know a little bit more about you, we want to know if you identify as a property owner or renter, a developer, or real estate agent.
Only one. Okay.
Is everyone able to toggle to all of the poll questions?
No.
No, I have to manually do them one at a time.
Got it. Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome.
So let's, go on to question 3. Take a few minutes just to respond to the poll. If you've just joined us, we are responding to this poll at the moment, but if you just popped into the room, please, if you could, we're just testing some of the technology features, please introduce yourself and put your name and maybe a few words why you are here today. So we're on the third of 4 questions. Polling is closed. I think we have one more question, Danielle. Oh, there we go. Perfect. And the last question is, have you talked to planning customer service about building an ADU in the past? So we have about 91% of folks participating, which is great. So thank you. That makes me very happy. So I think that's everybody. Let's go ahead and close the poll and look at the results.
So that is the results for question number 1. And I'll pull up number 2.
Actually, do you mind if we can read these out loud? I believe there are some members here on the phone with us. So it might be nice to read out the question to see what the winning result was.
Oh, sure. Let me go back to the first one.
Thanks, Danielle.
All right. Why are you interested in building an ADU? So it looks like we have 14% of the respondents wanting a home for themselves. 35% would like a home for a family member. 47% is to generate supplemental income or to build a rental unit. And we have 4% that responded other. All right, so the second question is, what size ADU are you interested in building? 8% said 450 square feet or less. 10% said 451 to 650 square feet. 27% said 651 to 850 square feet. And 56% of respondents said greater than 851 square feet. All right, and so our third question is just defining who our respondents are, and 88% of our respondents are residential property owners in Renton, 7% are developers, 1% real estate agent, and 3% other. And question number 4, have you talked to planning customer service about building an ADU in the past? 21% of respondents said yes, 75% said no, and 3% were unsure.
So thank you everybody for taking the time to respond to that. It's a great way for us to learn a little bit more about you and how you might use the ADUs and where your interest lies. So that's really great information for us to have moving forward. So I'm going to close the poll. Again, if you're just joining us, please enter your name if you like and a couple sentences why you are here today. But we had this slide pulled up in the beginning and I just wanted to go over it again. As a friendly reminder, please keep your microphone muted when not speaking and use the chat function to ask questions, and you are welcome to do this throughout the meeting. or wait until the end, and you can use your virtual hand raising tool to indicate that you wish to speak. And then finally, please remember this is a public meeting and it is being recorded, and the chat box is also part of the public record for this meeting. All right, so let's get into it. We've gone over welcomes and introductions. I will do a briefing of what accessory dwelling units are, talk about our permit-ready ADU program, and we'll go over all of the details of eligibility and our process. We'll show you our ADU base plans, which we're excited to share with you, give you an example of a case study of what you might expect if you were to apply to use one of our permit-ready ADU base plans, and go over some of the waived and reduced fees. And then we'll show you how to actually apply for what we are calling a permit-ready ADU pre-screen meeting. And then at the end, of course, we'll have time for questions. So we are all here to talk about accessory dwelling units. And if you're here, I'm guessing that you're familiar with an accessory dwelling units or what an ADU is. But if you're still wondering what an ADU is, don't worry, I've got you covered. The term typically refers to a second, smaller dwelling unit located on the same lot as a single family home. They go by many cutesy and endearing names like a backyard cottage, a granny shack, a mother-in-law apartment. I just recently shared in another presentation I did on this topic that I came across this new term to me, which is a Fonzie flat, in reference to the above garage apartment where Arthur Fonzarelli lives on Happy Days. And I'm going to put this out there. If you know of a better term for an ADU than a Fonzie flat, I want to hear about it. Please add it to the chat now, because I don't think I've heard anything better than a Fonzie flat yet. But just to make it clear, the exact definition of an ADU really varies across jurisdictions because we each adopt our own definitions and development regulations. So what is allowed in Seattle or Olympia or Lacey might differ from what we allow in Renton. But they are fully independent from the primary residence, and they offer the same facilities that you would find in a single family home. So an accessory dwelling unit has a bathroom, a bedroom, a kitchen, but it's subordinate or accessory to the primary dwelling. ADUs are not a new concept. They provide some of this, and historically have provided relief from post-World War II housing crisis, and have played a very important role in providing additional housing where housing demand has exceeded the supply. And it was not uncommon in the past for property owners to build small temporary home while they sourced funds to build what would then become the larger family home on the same lot. But once again, we're seeing that ADUs are gaining momentum as a way to address housing needs and increase housing inventory and respond to changes in our social norms. So we know that we have a very large aging baby boomer population who have expressed interest in aging in place in their existing home or their neighborhoods. We know that ADUs are being used by adult children who are staying with their family unit longer or returning home after college, or perhaps delaying college for various reasons. But I think it's a great option for aging parents also, or other family members who are unable to fully live on their own, but still gives them independence and privacy. The exact living arrangement varies from house to house. So the property owner might reside in the main dwelling and rent the accessory unit to a family member, or like I said, maybe their aging parents live there, or they might even opt to rent the ADU to someone in their community. In some instances, the property owner might even choose to live in the accessory unit and then rent out the primary residence. And that's a way for them to generate additional income. So I just want to quickly discuss some of the benefits to ADU development and explain why we feel that ADUs are something worth pursuing and why we've focused so much of our work on ADUs the past 2 years or so. So ADU development, particularly in existing neighborhoods, efficiently makes use of our existing housing stock and public investment, because the public investment is already there. ADUs, so that's in the form of utility hookups or infrastructure like roads and sewer. And because ADUs do not count towards density requirements in Renton, it's a way for us to support our housing growth targets in accordance with the Growth Management Act without needing to increase density. And for existing property owners, building an ADU on the same lot as their current home is likely going to be a much more cost efficient than new construction on an undeveloped lot, because they've already acquired the land. Those improvements that I mentioned are already in place and the infrastructure is there. ADUs also help families build wealth and promote housing stability, because they are likely, if there's an ADU on site, they're generating additional household income for the property owner, and they promote socioeconomic mobility by creating opportunity for low and moderate income families to live in neighborhoods that they might not otherwise be able to afford, which might mean access to better schools with more resources. So I've shared what we've identified to be as several benefits to ADU development, and to really make the case why we've been so committed to promoting ADU development or ADU construction in the city. We took time in 2019 and 2020 to make significant changes to our development regulations with the goal of reducing barriers to ADU development and streamlining our application process. While researching local ADU practices, I learned of other jurisdictions who had developed a very unique approach to incentivizing ADU development in their own cities, such as making ADU-based plans available to property owners in their community. And so that is essentially what we have done, is we've dedicated the past year or so to working with an architect to develop 8 ADU model base plans that will be available to residential property owners throughout the city. The base plans will be available for free to residential property owners in Renton. They are pre-designed and pre-engineered or pre-designed and engineered, and comply with the city's development and design regulations for building and energy codes. Because they are pre-approved and pre-designed, pre-engineered, applicants won't need to go through our typical review process, which will save applicants a significant amount of time and money. And by making these plans available to property owners, we are providing a cost savings in the thousands, because we've eliminated the need to hire a design professional and an engineer. And then ideally, then the property owner could take that cost savings and apply it towards construction and labor costs. So the very first thing that we did, even before contracting an architect, was to create an architectural narrative of the existing housing stock in the city. So that when we were ready to begin the design phase, we could hand over this document and say, this is Renton, and we want our pre-designed ADUs to reflect and be complementary to the existing housing stock that already exists. So we were very, very intentional in developing ADUs that would fit and maintain the existing neighborhood and in character in our neighborhoods. So once we had completed that architectural narrative, we contracted an architect, Jill Souza, who I believe might be in the room, to work with us on developing these ADU-based plans. And Jill really, I want to just point out, went above and beyond what we could have hoped for in making sure that these models could feasibly be constructed on lots that have the typical characteristics of lots throughout the city, and are representative of those residential properties. So we have a lot of long, narrow lots, and we were working with Jill and selected parcels and placed these models on them just to make sure that if we blindly selected a few, that we'd be able to place some of these models on actual properties. But before sitting down with Jill and going through the design process, we prepared a list of what we've identified as design criteria and priorities. We were looking for compliance with our residential design guidelines. Of course, we wanted them to comply with those, and the building codes, energy code. We knew that we wanted designs to be economical and affordable to build. And we also knew that mobility and accessibility were top considerations. So you'll notice that some of the floor plans were designed specifically to be more open to accommodate for a wheelchair, and we included slab on grade options, making them more easily accessible. Energy efficiency was another priority. Based on their small footprint, the ADUs are already reasonably energy efficient, but we worked with Jill and an energy consultant to identify 2 models that would be designated as our energy efficient models. And the energy consultants assigned 2 structures to have a preliminary home energy rating score, or a HERS score, which is a requirement for a Built Green certification. So we've already laid the groundwork for those applicants who might know that that's something that they want to pursue if they really want that Green Built certification. And finally, we wanted to make sure that we had designs that were diverse, and so that any residential property owner could select an ADU that matches the architectural compatibility of their home. So to explain that a little more, even though we only have 8 ADU model base plans, each model or floor plan has anywhere between 3 and 6 variations, which allows for diverse housing styles. It'll make a little more sense when we get further along in the PowerPoint slide deck. And I'm actually going to hand this over to Brittany Gillia, another planner on staff, who will talk about eligibility for the program.
Thank you, Katie. Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany, and I am a planner with Current Planning. And I'll actually be one of the staff people helping applicants through this process. So definitely feel free to reach out with any questions after this. But so for eligibility, there are some general guidelines that we can go over. Firstly, that this is for City of Renton residential property owners. So for any residentially zoned properties within the city limits, this program is for you. You can definitely reach out to see if you do fall within our city limits as well. That would be a fantastic question to bring to planning customer service if you'd like to learn more. Next, it kind of does depend on HOA restrictions. So that would be specific to the different areas that you live in and the different neighborhoods and HOAs that you may be a part of. And for everyone, HOA is a homeowners association. So there might be some specifics related to sort of the jurisdiction of where your house is and what types of guidelines you'd need to be following. And nextly, there is some ADU sizing that is determined by the lot size and also by the size of the existing structure. So I believe there was a question in the chat about this. For lots that are 3,000 square feet or less, the maximum ADU size would be 600 square feet. For 3,001 to 4,999 square feet, it's a maximum ADU size of 700 square feet. For lots that are 5,000 square feet to 6,999 square feet, that is a maximum ADU size of 800 square feet. For lots that are anywhere between 7,000 and 8,999 square feet, the maximum ADU size would be 900 square feet. And for lots greater than 9,000 square feet, the maximum ADU size is 1,000 square feet. And so with all of this being said, those are our general guidelines, but we do also have a separate sort of size guideline as well, that the ADU cannot exceed 75% of the size of the primary dwelling. So we want to make sure that these accessory dwelling units are in fact accessory to the primary unit, and that they are visually represented and make sense with the layout, that they are an accessory use to the existing structure. And so next here, we have a slide on the process for the PRADU program. And so with this PRADU program, to be able to use all of the base plans that have been pre-designed and pre-engineered, you'll need to go through a few different steps to make sure that your lot is eligible, to make sure that you understand which model you'd like to use. And so this is not the process for all ADU development. This is a process very specific to the PRADU program. If you're interested in general ADU development, we can definitely still help you out. But right now I'll be going over the PRADU development process. And so the first step would be to start at planning customer service. And so this is an email or a phone call, but you can reach out to the planning staff where we can talk to you about what size is your lot? What is the zoning of your lot? What types of structures do you already have? And through talking to planning customer service, they can also share some more information about what options are available to you through a lookbook that Katie will go over in the next slide. And so after getting all of your preliminary information together, next, the step would be to apply for an ADU, sort of a pre-screen meeting. This is where you're going to be entering the information that planning customer service has helped you with into an online portal. And that online portal will give staff, so myself and Scott, who you'll meet later in this presentation, will be able to see your materials, see sort of what your proposal looks like, and do some analysis. And so the next step is going to be that staff review time, where it'll be around 2 weeks for Scott and I to go through your proposal, make sure that everything looks right, and that we can create some materials for you so that you can take these materials and work towards your building permit. I believe Scott might have popped up down there on the bottom of the screen for those of us that are in this mode where you can see 5 of us. So there's Scott for you. All right, so at the end of that 2 weeks, you'll meet Scott and I in a meeting. The PRADU pre-screen meeting is going to be a sort of a fun, informal event where you can show up and ask questions. Scott and I can show you some information based on the review that we've done. We are hoping to have several different materials there for you that you can take home with you that day. And there may be also some follow-up materials after that to help you with understanding details about your property. So things that you might get would be a site plan. We would be showing you sort of the model that you're going to be working towards. We would be sort of talking to you about utilities. And so this meeting will be super helpful for you to sort of get a better understanding of your specific situation, and to kind of ask Scott and I questions in live time so we can make sure your proposal is reflecting what you'd like to submit for your building permit. And so after that meeting is over, you'll be receiving your base plans. I believe we'll be sending you a packet of documentation that you can use to work with any contractors or try to get some information on your end to make sure that you're ready to move forward in the process. And once you are ready to move forward, you'll be submitting information to our building department where you're going to officially give your building permit application. And so once you submit your building permit application, all of the materials that Scott and I have been working with you on should be ready to go. So it'll be a very quick turnaround, as it'll only be 1 week that we're shooting for to get you from the time you submit your building permit until the time that you're able to obtain the issued building permit. And so that's actually very, very quick for everyone who's not familiar with the building permit process. 1 week is a fantastic time frame. And so next, after you've obtained your building permit, it'll resume as construction as normal. You'll be able to go through the standard process for having an inspector come out to make sure that the structure is going through the construction process properly. And after all that is done, then you're all ready and you can move in once your permit has been finished and finalized.
So I think we're back to me. I think Brittany mentioned that we have been working on an informational lookbook. So we have been working on several materials to help support the rollout of our Permit Ready ADU program. Again, that's the PRADU program. And one of those efforts is this informational lookbook that takes a deeper dive into ADUs and covers much of what we are discussing here with you today, including the application process, frequently asked questions, and information about the models that are available. So we have been calling this informally the AD What, AD Who, ADU document, because it's really geared towards breaking down planner speak. So I know at the beginning of our time together today, someone asked, what is an ADU in the chat? And just to that point, we've really tried to break down all of the planner speak that we use in our department and make it user-friendly so that it can be a strong resource for the public. So in this informational lookbook, again, it covers a lot of what we've talked about, the benefits to ADUs, a little bit about ADU history, if that interests you, incentives and reduced fees, and goes over the application process and how to select a PRADU that could be accommodated on your site. So now we're to the part of the presentation, which I'm sure you've all been waiting for, getting to some of the visual aspects of the models. So this is the Adams, as we're calling it. It is a 520 square foot, 1 bedroom, 1 bath model. And it is, I mentioned earlier that even though we have 8 base plans, there's a lot of variation between each one. So you'll see here we have 1 floor plan. And for each of these models, that floor plan does not change. But by changing some of the architectural features and changing the roof style, we're able to provide some variations and diversity so that you can find an ADU that matches the style of your existing home. This is the Baker model. It's a 1 bedroom, 1 loft with 1 bathroom unit. This is our smallest unit at 416 square feet. And this is one of those ones that we had identified as our energy efficient model. So it has a preliminary home energy rating score. And apologies, I'm not sure if you can see the floor plans very well on your monitors, but this presentation will be available after, so you can access and zoom in to all the features once we're done today. This is the Cascade model. It's a 2 bedroom, 1 bath unit of 650 square feet. And again, 3 different styles that all have one thing in common. The floor plan is consistent, stays the same. The Enchantment, this is our largest model at 1,000 square feet. It's a 2 bedroom, 2 bath with the option for a flex space or a 3rd bedroom.
And actually, Katie, I think we're 1 slide behind. I'm looking at the Glacier right now.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, the Glacier.
All right, thanks, Katie. So as I had mentioned before, Scott and I will be helping all of you create a site plan that you'll use to submit with your building permit. And so we did a little general case study on a lot that it was a random lot that we kind of picked because it was a good representation of just sort of a general layout. And so you'll see here, it's a single family home. There seems to be a small accessory structure towards the alley on the lot on the right-hand side. But there's a nice large space in the center there for a potential PRADU. Next slide. All right, so what we were able to do is do a very basic model where we can use some existing mapping, some existing technology, and sort of make a very basic frame, I suppose, that represents what the structure looks like on site. So you can see here, we used SketchUp to do our modeling. And it's a very, very basic kind of a little box with the roof on there to represent the house, but it should be the same size and height as per our online records. And then we were able to incorporate the trees. Trees are very important to make sure that we can accommodate the ADU or the just in general development without damaging the health of trees. So that will be another important aspect of what we'll be working on together. Next slide. And so here you can see another view of that model. You can see the primary structure sort of roughly laid out there. And then there is the accessory structure there in the back. We were able to use that SketchUp program to do a top-down view. And that's sort of what the site plan, it's a very, very preliminary look at it, but it's a fantastic way to get a visual idea of what the site looks like and then also use that towards your submittal materials. And next slide, please. And so here is the model for the PRADU SketchUp design that represents all of the base plans that Katie was showing you earlier. And the architect was super fantastic and able to help us have several different versions that represent each of the different models. So when we do chat, you can see the models up close and sort of on your lot and have a good understanding of where things might fit or how things might need to be oriented. This is something that we're hoping you will be able to come to planning customer service with your ideal location And then when you meet Scott and I, we will have placed the ADU where you had specified so that you can sort of see what it looks like on your lot. But so on the bottom right-hand corner here, it's the same site plan as before, but you can see that now there's that ADU or the PRADU located in the backyard. And so if you go to the next slide, you can see how we've turned that from the SketchUp model with all of the colors. It's very simple to remove the colors and place that onto just a general site plan document. And this is something that you'll be able to take home with you. On this site plan document, there'll be a few different bits of information on that right-hand side there. This information will be helpful for both you and us as staff to review. It'll be general things regarding zoning review to make sure that you have the right amount of lot coverage, or to make sure that the general amount of accessory structures you have on site will comply with everything that needs to happen for your proposal. Next, there is also the setback requirements and height verification. So we'll be making sure that wherever you do end up deciding to place your PRADU, that it complies with all of our current codes. There's also some information there about critical areas. So we are going to be taking a look at your site to see if there are any critical areas that may be of concern, to make sure that development would be allowable in the location. And if there were critical areas, we may ask you for some more information, or work with you on the side to make sure that those would not impede the development of a PRADU. Next, there's also going to be some information about utilities. That will be something that Scott from the engineering department will be helping you with, but we can help to make sure that you know where your utility hookups might be, making sure that you're in the right water and sewer district for the appropriate advice that you'll be getting. Sometimes that's us, and sometimes that's an external group. And so we'll help you with all of those items there. And then there are some just general additional details, sort of making sure that you know more about the general package that you're going to be working with. Things like the energy credits that you may be pursuing. So just there's a lot of research here that we can work on together. And not only will staff have this information to know that your proposal has been reviewed, but you get to take this with you. So you also have an understanding of what you'll be needing to work on towards your building permit.
Okay, this is where I get to jump in. My name is Scott Warlick, and I work in community and economic development, and I will be helping you guys with your utility hookups. So I get to take the really nice site plans that Brittany does up for us and put a bunch of color markings on them. Some of the things to notice on here is we have an alley in the back and Pelly Avenue North in the front. We have an 8-inch gravity wastewater main that is in the back in the alley, and an 8-inch surface water main. One of the comments that I have on here is we do not know the approximate location of the 6-inch PVC side sewer for this lot. So one of the things that we would have to do is we would have to go out and locate that side sewer and make sure that it is usable, and just make sure that the new ADU is not going to be built on top of it. The side sewer, sorry guys, my chat keeps popping stuff up on top of the text there. If the side sewer cannot be rerouted, then any portion that falls within the footprint of the new addition shall be reconstructed to meet the requirements of the UPC. So if for some reason we can't get fall back to that stub, we would allow that side sewer connection to run through the ADU as long as it meets the requirements of the UPC, which is the Uniform Plumbing Code. One of the other things to note on here is the water main that's out in front in Pelly Avenue there. Per the city requirements, a new 1-inch water meter will be required for the proposed ADU. Another thing to notice on here is I referenced the PSC power is on the opposite side of the street. City code does require that that power is undergrounded. So the good thing here is there's not a lot of other utilities in Pelly Avenue. So I believe that we could get away with doing a boring and not having to cut open that road, which should help with some of the costs in this scenario. Going on to the next slide. This is our roadway and drainage determination that I would fill out for you guys. On these first 2 pages, there's not a lot of information that you're going to need from here. The first page is just talking about the roadway improvements that would be required for this project. In the 4 years that I've been working for the city, I haven't had an ADU trigger any frontage improvements, and I don't foresee any of these projects to trigger them. The second page on the right here, we include because I think it has a lot of really good links in it to other resources that might help you if you decide to go in a different direction. And if there is, for some reason, we need to do a civil construction permit to do right-of-way improvements, then I would mark up this second page and give you what we would require for those. Next page, please. And this is the third page. This is where I'll be adding up all the different fees that will be included for public works on this project. For this one, the 1-inch water meter is installed by City Forces, and that fee is $1,437.50. And then the city drops in the 1-inch meter for $230. There is a system development charge for the water system, and that is $2,225. And all these fees used to be twice what they are now. They've been cut in half. For the sewer fees, the system development charge would be $1,725. The wastewater construction permit fees are waived. The special assessment districts are, it's like a latecomers fee. There's a lot of scenarios in the city where a developer had to extend a sewer main, let's say 500 feet, and that main went in front of your home, and they put a stub out for you to be able to hook up to that sewer main at some point in time. If you were on septic and you had to convert and hook up to the city sewer main, there would be this latecomer fee or special assessment district fee that could be included. This scenario did not have one of those, but I just want people to be aware that there are additional fees that can be included with those sewers. For stormwater, my system development charge is $1,000, and our stormwater construction permit fee has been waived. And also the transportation impact fees have also been waived. Next page. So some of the cost savings that we put together for this, the building fee permits we've had, because of the fees that we've adjusted, you will be saving $3,798.30 on the building permit fees. There is $12,585.82 of impact fees that have been waived. And for public works, we have waived $8,275 in total. Next page. And we use a building valuation data cost estimate to find out what the average cost of these ADUs are. And these averages include foundation work, structural and non-structural building components, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, and interior finished material. The data is a national average and does not take into account any regional cost differences. And so using this building valuation data for the 8 different ADUs that we have, we came up with a range of $63,870 for the smaller ADUs, and going all the way up to $150,000 and $150,000 for the bigger ones. Our recommendations would be to hire some local contractors and definitely go get a few different quotes, at least 3 quotes, to try and really nail down the price of these ADUs. And next slide.
So, oh, go ahead, Scott.
No, go ahead, Katie.
So before Scott runs us through a demonstration of the online application process, I want to just put this out there. Before applying, please, please, please contact Planning Customer Service so that we can talk about the options and to have like a very preliminary conversation about the specifics of your property. So the best way to reach us right now, you can call 425-430-7294 and leave a voicemail, and someone from Planning Customer Service will get back to you. Or, and I think this is probably the best way to reach out to us at the moment, is send an email to planningcustomerservice@rentonwa.gov. And in the subject, put PRADU and your address. So I have an example here. If I lived at 1055 South Grady Way, which happens to be Renton City Hall, I don't live there, you would enter in the subject PRADU 1055 South Grady Way. So please take that step first before you apply online. It will really ensure that you have a successful application process if we're able to work through and have conversations about your site and what you want to do first, just as a very preliminary conversation. But yes, before you apply, contact Planning Customer Service, select your PRADU design that you would like to build on your lot, and then you'll create an online account so that you can submit for your pre-screen application and meeting, and then schedule that meeting. And now I am going to stop sharing my screen, and Scott is going to demonstrate what that process looks like on the customer facing end.
Okay, everybody, this is our, we call it CSS site, or our permitting portal. The first thing that we'll need to do in order to use this site is you will have to create a login. Currently, I am using our test site, and so I'm using our IT person's login so that I can do this quick tutorial. But we would go to apply. And we have the permit ready ADU program. And like Katie just said, we have a big disclaimer on here that talks about making sure that you talk to Planning Customer Service before you come in to apply for these permit ready ADUs. So we would go into apply, and then we will ask for a location. And we always use City Hall for our examples. And sometimes putting less information into the address finder will actually give you more information. Right here, we're just asking for a quick kind of description of what you're planning on doing. Really what we're looking for is we want to know which way you want that ADU to face so that we can get it on that site plan the correct way. If there are any other contacts that you want to add on to this permit package, if you already have a contractor that you know you're going to use and you want them to be added on, this is a place in which you can add more contacts. Right here, this is where we'll start asking for more information specific to the ADU itself. So I'm just going to call this the test one for right now. And we'll say that we had 1,800 square feet of impervious surface. We'll say the building height for the primary structure is 14 feet. Let's say 1-story house. And then this is where you get to pick which ADU model that you're looking for. And hopefully we've already talked about this at the original meeting so that you know which one you want to use. And then we're asking for you to list any existing structures that are on site. So this would be like saying that you have a primary residence and a shed on site. And down here, you can request information on different energy efficient options that we may have for those different ADU base plans. Here, this is where we're looking for some additional information on just the existing primary structures. So if you can take a picture and include that here, and a property map hand drawn is fine. I'm going to skip this part for right now. Oh, looks like I cannot skip it. So it will require you to do these things before you can move on. So if you run into this step and you are having trouble, you are able to save this draft and you can contact us if you need help with these additional things. So I'll just include a couple of pictures real quick. Here's my puppy photo that I always throw in there. And we'll do a picture of City of Renton just to get through this part. And this is just the screen that kind of compiles all the information that you're looking to submit. And if you think that you have everything ready at this point, then you can submit for your PRADU ADU. And this part usually takes a minute for it to load and talk to our other permitting software. And this is where you would be able to see your PRADU permit number. And this is when me and Brittany would receive all the documents from you, and we would start doing our initial review before we sit down with you and have our pre-screen meeting.
Thanks, Scott. And so now I suppose everyone has seen the application process. I'm happy to share my screen and show you sort of what you'll be looking at when we get to these pre-screen meetings. Let's see here. Give me 1 second to share my screen. Okay. So as we had mentioned before, we're using SketchUp to sort of do the site planning and just general modeling. And so I wanted to show everyone kind of how cool it is, because this, from the street view, this is what the property would be looking like, but we can actually put the ADU into the site, and you can actually sort of see what it looks like, how you'd want to orient it. You'd be able to see how it would interact with any of the existing structures on site, with the existing trees. We can also talk about walkways and pathways to access your ADU. So this will be a super fun part of the process. I'm really looking forward to working with everyone to make sure that everyone is able to get their ideal site plan together. And so, as I had mentioned earlier, we can kind of get the site plan from this model. Let's see. Actually, let me stop sharing. I'm going to open up another model, but I want to make sure that I know where my file is and I'm not leading you all through a maze of files here, but I'll show you what the site plan looks like too. And I guess while I'm looking for this, Scott or Katie, if anyone wanted to lead into any of the questions while I'm pulling up this model or go over any of the last parts of the presentation.
I think that Chip, Vincent, if our CED administrator was going to say a few words before we open up for questions. So Chip, if you want to jump in now, I think it would be a great time.
Great. Well, Katie, thank you so much for the introduction, and as well, thank you for the presentation here along with Scott and Brittany. I think it's really been informative, and Danielle, thank you for keeping things going. I just want to say a couple words really quickly. First is, I'm tickled to death to see the level of interest in this meeting today. We have 99 people participating here today as part of this conversation. It's accessory dwelling units, or PRADUs, as we're talking about today, are really a unique opportunity for the city to provide meaningful, affordable housing that preserves and maintains neighborhood character. We've looked at this program that we have put together as a four-legged table, and each leg is important for holding up the table. The first is with the fee structure. The fact is we have been able to eliminate or modify all the fees to make it as affordable as possible for people to build. We've created a brand new process that's absolutely streamlined as much as possible. And where there is any subjectivity, we're putting that in the hands of the CED staff to work with you, to work through the process, to make it as easy as possible to apply. Finally, having the pre-reviewed pre-designed plans really is a significant savings to people. If you estimate just the fees and the cost of the designs and energy review and engineering review, well over $30,000 in value there when you add all of those together. And it's really exciting to be able to do that. Well, we've estimated some timelines there. I want you to know that we're very conservative. We actually hope that we're going to be able to turn these permits around from the time they're applied in 24 hours. But we want to set the bar reasonable out of the starting gate. So we're saying 1 week, which is very, very quick to be able to do that. You know, I just wanted to say that all four pieces of this, we hope that this really creates a unique opportunity for the reasons Katie identified at the very beginning of the conversation here today. But most importantly, I just want to absolutely thank not just the staff who are here with you today, but more importantly, the mayor and the city council and the city planning commission. They have worked so hard on this for the last couple of years to have this program. This is the initial rollout, but we're so grateful and supportive. As Katie was going through those fees couldn't have been eliminated. I'm sorry, Scott was going through the fees. Those fees couldn't have been eliminated without the support of the city council and the mayor to do so. So we're really excited about this opportunity. We're really excited about the collaboration and the leadership of our elected officials that we all serve here in CED. So with that, I will hand it back to Katie.
I'm gonna ask Brittany, were you able to pull up your files? If not, then we can just jump right into the Q&A portion.
Sure. So the file, let's see. This is really all I was going to show everyone. From that initial model, you can sort of really simplify it so that when you do a top-down view, although the trees were there before in the other model, this is more appropriate towards how site planning normally works. And so it's the same concept, but I just think it's super neat that you can kind of have that 3D model, but it still works for the top-down view. But I think that was the end of the SketchUp demo that I wanted to do. So definitely let's jump into some Q&A.
If I can hop in here, it seems like people are most curious about living in the ADU and renting out the main house.
Sorry, was the question specific to whether or not we require owner occupancy? Is that what folks are wanting to know?
Yeah, there was a question about possibly signing an affidavit, or if you're allowed to rent out the main house while living in the ADU.
So we do currently have an owner occupancy requirement, but we do not, it doesn't matter to us if the owner resides in the primary dwelling or the accessory dwelling. It's just a requirement that the property owner lives on site.
So, you know, let me, Katie, if I can use different words to say it again, simply because this is a question we get a lot, that the only requirement is that, as Katie said, that the property owner be present. It doesn't matter if it's in the primary residence or the accessory dwelling unit, but the property owner or somebody within their family needs to be on the site. We do that for a couple reasons. First, in order to ensure maintenance and security. And really, we're looking for an opportunity for this to gather wealth for the person who owns the property and not turn this into something where we could run into displacement because homes now turned into investment properties.
I also saw somebody was curious, can you build the ADU before you build the main house?
Yes, except it wouldn't be called an ADU.
And so I believe also to elaborate, these ADU plans can be available to be built at the same time as the primary residence. So the PRADU program, I believe, if this was something that you'd be interested in, you can reach out to staff and we can work with you on that. But I believe with the PRADU program, in order to keep them accessory, as Chip had said earlier, there would need to be a primary residence first, or both structures would need to be done at the same time.
All right, and this one I believe is going to Scott. We had several questions about hooking up to the existing meters and how you hook up your utilities.
For water? Yeah, okay.
I believe so.
For water, the city of Renton requires a new water meter hookup. So that would be going all the way back to the main and installing a new water meter on your site. That is for city of Renton requirements. We are not the only water provider in the city of Renton. So if you had Water District 90 or Seuss Creek or Cedar River or one of the other ones, you would need to get a water availability from them and find out what their requirements will be for their water hookups.
And then another question, are the fees only waived for homeowners if they use these plans?
Yeah, if they don't fall into the PRADU program, it's not for other ADUs, is how I understand it right now.
And so we do actually also have some fees that are waived for ADUs, and I think Katie might be the best to speak to that.
Yes, so the application fees and the impact fees are waived for all ADUs for the next 2-year budget cycle. So that's something that we adopted in January. It went into effect January 1st, 2021, and will be available for the next 2 years. After that, I don't know what will happen.
Can you build an ADU using a septic system?
Septic systems are regulated by King County Health, so they will have to reach out to King County Health and talk to them about that to find out if their septic system can handle an additional dwelling unit being built out there. The city would look at, we would be able to provide a sewer availability for you to see if there is City of Renton sewer available for you. But the septic system is controlled by King County Public Health.
Is this ADU program for a limited time? Is there a date that people need to apply before?
So this program, there is no end date for the PRADU program that we have at this point. So I think that this is a fantastic way to start planning, and hopefully for everyone who's interested in this program, definitely reach out now, but you're definitely also able to reach out in the future as well. So hopefully we'll be doing this program for a while.
I see there's several questions about adding decks or moving windows. What sort of modifications are allowed?
I can answer this one as well. So for this program, for the PRADU program specifically, not general ADU development, because we have all of these plans pre-designed and pre-engineered, we will not be allowing modifications that change any of these structural components. So that includes things like windows and door placements. The plans that we are providing will need to be sort of unaltered, and there may be very small changes available to select models, but those changes are options that we will present to you at that time. And they are very, very specific. And so really what you're going to be seeing on these plans is generally what you'll be needing to move forward with for the development.
Just to add on to what Brittany said, if you were to build one of these ADUs today, that would not, based on our pre-approved model base plans, that would not preclude you from, once the structure is built, making modifications to the structure, as long as you're still meeting our development regulations. So our setback requirements and size requirements, and you're not exceeding your maximum impervious surface area.
Next question is, do we have a list of contractors we recommend?
So that's a great question. We don't have a list of contractors generated. That might be something potentially much later down the line, but as of right now, we do not have that available. But what I would recommend is utilizing resources like Nextdoor or Facebook or your neighbors to see who they may have worked with in the past and if they have any recommendations for contractors to work with.
Let's see, is there a limit on how many ADUs will be permitted in a year?
Can Chip answer that question?
Sure, Katie. No, there is no limit on how many will be permitted. But however, we do reserve the ability based on staffing levels to be able to review only so many at a certain time. So we frankly don't know how many people will be interested, and we want to be able to commit to our timelines. So if there's an overwhelming desire to do these at any given time, we may have to regulate how many can come in just to match our staffing levels. But there is no limitation overall. It's frankly our staffing resource and capacity. And we want to make sure that when people do apply, that we can meet all the timelines and expectations that we've outlined here. So we may be metering them, but frankly, we think we're staffed up enough so that we won't need to do that. But again, we don't know what the demand is going to be. So that's the only caveat.
Thanks, Chip.
Could you talk a little bit more about the setback requirements? And I also saw a question a little bit ago about height requirements.
Sure. So ADUs do have a list of their own setback requirements that are slightly different than the primary structure. And so let me just see. I do have some code pulled up so I can get a little nerdy with you all, but for the minimum setbacks, the front yard and the secondary front yard, it shall be set back an additional 5 feet parallel measured to the front facade of the primary structure. So it needs to comply with the existing setback of that primary structure's underlying zone and then be an additional 5 feet back from that. Aside from that, there is the ADU shall not be permitted between the primary structure and the street unless approved in the conditional use permit process. And so this is a separate land use process. This is a permit that will need to be completed. And so if you are interested in this, I would recommend reaching out to Planning Customer Service so we can take a look to see if this is something that may be viable and we can advise you further on that. But generally, yes, the ADU will need to be set back a bit. For the side yard, we do have some different requirements. For our lower density RC and R1 zones, it is a 25-foot setback, but for most of our other residential zones that are not in that very, very low density, the setbacks are 4 or 5 feet depending on your zone. And then also the rear yard setback is 5 feet as well for most of our residential zones. So it's sort of tailored to make sure that you can accommodate an ADU on your lot as long as it's sort of set back and secondary or accessory to your main structure. And along with that, in order for accessory dwelling units or just structure in general to not be considered attachments or additions to other existing structures, they'll need to be 6 feet apart. And so 6 feet apart is going to allow you to have your ADU or your PRADU be separated from any of your accessory structures or sheds, and also for the primary structure. So those are our setbacks, and definitely reach out to planning customer service if you wanted to send in your property address, and we can take a look at where something might fit on your lot too.
I got a question about, will there be any plans for additions, not just ADUs?
So at this time, we do not have any plans for additions that are available. I saw a look on Katie's face that looks like she had some cogs were turning. Do you have any extra information on that, or do you have any plans on that?
I think I was just trying to interpret the question and whether or not I was interpreting what the intent of it was. Sorry.
Oh, no, okay. But if I'm interpreting the question correctly, it sounds like someone is asking if we're going to have pre-designed, pre-approved addition plans. And we, at this point, we do not have that.
How long is the permit good for? When does it expire?
So there'll be several different dates. The pre-screen meeting that you'll go through with Scott and myself, there will be I believe it's a 1-year validity. If you're at that 6-month mark, we may need to review your information again just to make sure everything complies with all of the current code that's happening. But if you are going to be past the timeframes that we've got, you'll need to reapply for the program to make sure that we can reassess your lot and make sure everything is as current as possible. Aside from that, once you apply for your building permit officially, I believe it might also be a year, but I see Chip's video turning on, so he has some specific advice on that.
Once you apply for the building permit is good for 1 year.
Thank you.
I see. How is the parking space handled with ADUs that can only be placed in the backyard with no alley entrance?
So we'll work with the applicant to make sure that you're able to meet our parking requirements, since we do have some flexibility there, but we'll look at your specific site. So we'll, depending on where you are located, for example, if you're within proximity to a transit center or transit access, I should say, then we've waived the requirement for that. But I think really it's better to have a site-specific conversation. But that, to also answer your question, I think that's one of the advantages to building a carriage house unit, if that's an option to you, because you have all of your living area above the garage space, and you still have a designated parking space, and still also able to maintain some of the recreational area in your backyard.
And on that topic, can the ADU be on the side of the home, or is it required to be in the backyard?
If your lot allows, if your lot has the appropriate amount of space, and as long as you're not having the ADU between the house and a street, so if you were on a corner lot, I believe that as long as you're set back that 5 feet, it should be okay. But this is very case by case, so I would definitely recommend chatting with one of us so we can take a look. But it is not limited to only the backyard. It just depends on your lot.
Can we go back to the height requirement question? Can we talk about that again?
Yeah, so sorry about that. I had answered the first half of the question and not the second half. So ADUs are subject to the maximum wall plate height of the primary structure. And so there are different height limits for each different zone. But with the PRADU program specifically, what we're going to be looking for is to make sure that the PRADU is not taller than the primary structure, and to make sure that it is not adding an extra story or anything. I think there is a slight allowance for maybe, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 4 feet of height difference. So in normal ADU development, ADUs are not allowed to exceed the height, but with the PRADU program, I believe there's some allowances for maybe the 4 foot give or take to see if the ADU and the home can be close to the same height. Hopefully I answered that in a way that made sense.
Can a carriage house unit be built if you have a single-story house but are surrounded by 2 stories?
So in that case, if the home was a single story and the carriage unit was a full story above, depending on if it would be more than 4 feet tall, if the carriage unit would be 4 feet taller than the primary structure, then that is something that would not be allowed. But I think that that's also something that if you'd like to chat, we can take a look to see what size your structure is. We can take a look to see where things can be placed. So do reach out. All of these things and advice that we're giving are the general guidelines, but you never know until you can talk to staff to really analyze your proposal. So do reach out if you've got questions.
Brittany's absolutely right about that. Just to build on what she had said, like for very site-specific type questions, I really recommend having the opportunity to, letting us pull up your property on our online mapping, core maps, our city mapping service software. But about the height requirement for the PRADU models, you are allowed to exceed the height of the primary dwelling by 4 feet, as Brittany said, and that's allowed outright. But there is the option potentially to apply for a modification that would allow you to exceed the height from that, but that would require more of a discretionary review by staff. But we can have those conversations when we're able to take a closer look at your property.
Great. Are there any loans or grants available to allow residents to participate in the PRADU program if they can't afford it? And can you talk a little bit about the equity lens that maybe we've applied to this program?
So at this time, we do not have a program available to help with, that I'm aware of, to help with the construction of the ADU to cover those costs. So we've really been intentional in trying to reduce some of the upfront fees by waiving the permitting and the impact fees and providing the architectural designs, which is a significant cost savings to our applicants. Typically, your architectural fees are 10 to 15% of the cost of the dwelling itself. So if you're building a structure of $200,000, that's at a significant cost savings to the applicant. But there may be programs available that I'm not aware of at a regional level, potentially for loans and grants, but I'm just not aware of them.
And I see one of the hands raised. Ariel, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I was just wondering if someone could speak more on kind of the overall process as far as site plans, civil engineering. Does that all come from the city, or do you build a basic starting point that we have to then go put onto a site plan, hire someone to draw up a site plan? And also contractors and builders. I'm actually in the process of building a home in the city of Renton. I just received my permits, and most contractors, home builders, from what I found, they have their own pre-designed plans. And I imagine that, even just me thinking about going and trying to find contractors that would build somebody else's plan, they're not going to already have contracts for countertops and cabinets and all of these things. So I don't really see this being a cost savings, but I don't know. So I'm hoping that maybe someone could speak more to that.
So I think I can speak to the first half of your question regarding the site planning. And so the fantastic thing about this program is that the City of Renton is kind of going a little above and beyond. We are not only going to be able to share these plans with you, but we will be working with you at no cost to provide the site planning support. Scott and I will be giving you utility advice, making sure that you're prepared to move forward with implementing all of these actions. But the hope is that we will be doing all of the design work with you, and with the plans and plan sets that we already have that have been pre-designed and pre-engineered, it will all be kind of covered in the PRADU program timeline. And so it'll be really nice because there will be, at this point, there is no fee for the PRADU program meeting. It's sort of similar to a pre-application, which we also offer for other types of development. But it's sort of just like a casual way to talk to staff, but you'll also be receiving some materials for your submittal. And then as far as the contractors go, that is not a great area of my expertise, so I will let someone else handle that question.
So let me handle that, Brittany, if I can. Ariel, just as a general statement, going back to what Katie said, we have looked at everything we could as a city to remove the barriers and the costs to advance accessory dwelling units as really a meaningful alternative for affordable housing. Someone mentioned the issue of equity inclusion earlier, and I just say this ADU program goes right to the heart of that by providing affordable housing that's as easy to construct and build as possible and as affordable in neighborhoods and communities where it may have not been able to build before. So, you know, equity and inclusion is absolutely part of this program as we advance it. I would offer, Ariel, that we deal with a lot of contractors, and I will tell you, single family builders have a lot of single family designs they love to work with. The same is not true for accessory dwelling units or for cottages as far as that goes. There may be a few, but by and large, it's not the case from our experience. If there are builders out there, though, that do have their own designs for accessory dwelling units, they absolutely are. We embrace them as well to take advantage of these fees that we have. The PRADU specifically relates to the amount of work that we're doing on our side of the equation, though, as Brittany was just saying. But if there's builders out there who have their own plans for accessory dwelling units that the property owner likes better, by all means, you know, we will work just as hard to make those workable for the homeowner as something in the PRADU program. It's just been our experience that in talking to developers and builders, that just wasn't the case. There just wasn't a lot of good examples. So that's the idea here is you will typically see that the engineering and design of any residential unit will be close to 10% of the cost of the project. And we think this is a meaningful way to eliminate that cost.
I just wanted to remind our guests that are calling in, if you have a question, you can press *9 and that will show me that your hand is raised, and then *6 will unmute and then remute yourself as you press it again. I have another good question. Is there a King County sewer capacity charge for the PRADU?
I'm not sure. I think the sewer capacity charge is that, I think that's the monthly bill that you would get for hooking up to sewer. And we base that on the water meters. So there'd be a new water meter that would be hooked up. And so, yeah, there would be additional monthly payments for that ADU hooking up to sewer, if that's the question, I think.
Sorry, is there an intent to grow the number of PRADUs available, and will there be larger units available?
Yeah. The short answer to that is yes. This is a starting point for us in this program. We would like to, we're going to learn along with all of you as we advance this program and grow the program. As Katie said at the very beginning, this is a really unique opportunity we have collectively as a community to create meaningful, affordable housing. And we want to grow the program and frankly, refine it as well, you know, to make sure it works for the community as well as for the homeowners.
Are there requirements about who qualifies as a family member?
Boy, that is a great question. We haven't been asked that. I just, you know, I guess as long as you're in the blood lineage, I would guess if you're related, you're related. So frankly, it hasn't been, that's a great question. One we haven't been asked, but you know, if you're related, you're related, is what I would say at this point.
Can the plans be placed on top of an existing garage?
So go ahead, Brittany. Go ahead.
My answer to that would be due to the way that they are pre-engineered. I do not believe that would be advisable. And we do also have Al with us if he wants to speak to any structural elements about ADU development. He's here from the office to provide advice.
Yeah, before we kick it over to Al, I just want to point out, we have several carriage unit models, which are carriage units or the accessory dwelling units above the garages with different size garages. And we knew that there was going to be an interest in having accessory dwelling units above garages. Back to the previous question, this is going to be an interesting one to see how much demand there is for these carriage units, because this might be one of the first ones where we actually do some additional designs at different sizes of garages for people if there's a overwhelming interest in doing so. But we would look at that as forthcoming in the future. We're really lucky. You haven't heard from him yet, but Al Finley is a structural engineer who just popped up on screen. He's been working busily behind the scenes with our structural engineer, Reed Middleton, to make sure that these are going to be safe for everybody who builds them and meets all the requirements of our building code. So with that as an introduction to Master Al Finley. Al, anything you want to add?
Just with respect to putting a structure on top of an existing garage, that actually will have to have the normal permitting process, so it won't be pre-approved. Sorry to disappoint, but that's that would have to come in. Thank you, guys.
Have we calculated the cost, just a rough cost of lumber prices and what this might be for the final cost of somebody building an ADU?
So no, if I can answer that. No, we haven't. The estimates we gave at the initially that Scott provided were based on the International Building Code, and that's an overall regional average that's taken there. I will tell you, it's low right now. What we've noticed is with COVID is we have had an absolute unprecedented spike in materials costs. Don't think that's sustainable long-term, but I will be really candid. Material costs, we talk to contractors and builders every day in our department, and materials costs are becoming a real challenge right now under COVID. We'll see how we come out of this, but if you look at materials costs, you have a peak and a valley every decade, basically. And this is like it's gonna be our peak for the 2020s right now, because they are unrealistically high, and it's frankly unprecedented. So
If a resident uses their address, goes online and goes through the process, are they able to view the mock-up, or is that something staff creates?
So I can speak to that. So that is something that staff is going to be creating. by going onto that online portal, you're sort of telling us what you'd like to see. And then in that meeting is when we get to show it to you. So it will be that 2-week turnaround time. But between then, we're more than happy to work with you to make sure that the modeling that you get to see in that meeting is as close to what you'd like to see as possible.
I believe I caught up with the chat questions. I'm going through them, but if anybody does have a question, feel free to raise your hand if I missed it.
I do see a question in the chat, Danielle, regarding having a list of approved contractors. And so to address that question, to see if we have a list of approved contractors, as we are a public entity, we are not allowed to make specific recommendations. However, there may be some time in the future where we would discuss having different ways to work with available information that could be used as a resource, like we have done for other departments or groups that have just a general list of like a more widespread, not very specific recommendation based, but rather a contact list of some sort. So I'm not sure what that looks like, but at this point we do not have one. But feel free to email planning customer service if you have extra questions about that, and we'd be happy to chat with you.
I just saw some movement from Jill Souza in one of the boxes on my screen. She's our architect that has worked with us for the last year or so, and it has been great fun and a great learning opportunity for me to work with Jill. But I just wanted to pay respects where respects are due and thank her for being here and working with us, and give her a chance to say a few words if she would like to say something.
Well, hello. It's been a great year for sure and super fun. I don't really have anything else to say. I was thinking about someone's question about making changes, and although it is difficult to make changes to anything that's like on the exterior window locations, but you know, it certainly is not a problem to change things within the interior, the location of interior walls, and hopefully that'll be pretty clear on the plans which ones can be moved and which ones. There's very few models that have anything structurally important on the inside. So certainly interior design, hopefully there's enough variety so that you can find something that you like that works.
Great. Thank you, Jill. And I just want to do a shout out along with Katie to Jill Souza. She's been absolutely amazing working with us as an architect to create designs that will frankly fit and add value, quality, and character to our neighborhoods in Renton. That was really important to us as a success of the program. And Jill did an amazing job. To the question regarding contractors, though, as Brittany said, as a public entity, we can't advertise or help solicit for specific contractors. But what I would encourage people to do is the Master Builders Association of King County actually has a list of contractors there, and you can always go on kingcountymasterbuilders.com to find out available contractors and talk to them about who might be available. That's a good resource to use for finding contractors.
Andy, I see you've had your hand up. So would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. And it's really more of just some comments than a question. So I really wanted to thank, so I'm Randy Corman, I'm current Renton City Council President, and I just wanted to thank the community for being here today. You're all really helping us kick off an important pilot program. And I wanted to thank our city staff, and I wanted to thank Jill and everybody that's contributed to bringing this about, and really emphasize that this is a pilot program where I'm very intrigued by the comments. I know I have at least one of my my council colleagues was on here with us, Angelina Benedetti. There's probably others that have joined us, and we're interested in all the details. We're interested if you find the window locations constraining, or if you have troubles with the hookups, or any details, because we really want this to be successful. And part of having an open house was to get this kind of dialogue, and it's been marvelous how many comments have come in. Great questions. I'm sure that we'll be working with staff to resolve them. And then I just wanted to say, please keep the questions coming. And as we get going with some of these, I hope we can work out a way to sort of show some of the successes, to get photos and, you know, share them of how they've gone together. And also just like anything that you do again and again, hopefully we'll get better at it with time. And anyway, so thank you all so much. It's really nice to see such a successful open house.
Well, thank you, Council President Corman, for joining us. I saw Randy down there, but it didn't have the last name. So it's always the fear in these Zillow meetings is not knowing everybody who's in the room here. But I did identify one other name. I'd just like to recognize Chuck Seil from our Planning Commission, who is here. He's the immediate past president of the Planning Commission as well. And I apologize in advance if I'm missing any other planning commissioners or council members, but thank you both Randy and Chuck for being here.
And I have a question from Matt Curry. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, let me start off by saying thank you to everybody for all of your input today. We really appreciate the gathering of information. I have an existing building that's a garage that does not meet the exact setbacks for being behind my house. The building was built by the previous owner in the late 80s and approved through the city. When I purchased the property, they explained to me that it could be used as a warehouse space, but now that the ADUs are changing, I'm curious if or how I go about getting this approved to put an ADU on the second floor of the garage. It's already existing, the building is built and completed, it just is unfinished at this point for the apartment on the second floor.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Thanks, Matt, for your question. In our, I think, last iteration of our ADU code amendments, we were really intentional and prioritized creating some flexibility around garage conversions or accessory building to ADU conversions. And I think what I'll say now is that what I've said before to other folks, we'll really need to look exactly at your property and have your address and pull it up on our map. But I think there's definitely potential for flexibility so that we could accommodate a conversion like that. But again, it would be helpful to be able to take a closer look at exactly what you have on site.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And Katie, does the ADU have a separate address, and are there any related post office fees?
Yes, so there is a separate address, and when the building permit comes in to us across the counter, the application there will then be routed to someone in our property and technical services division, who will then generate an address for the ADU. And I don't believe there are any associated fees with that. It's all part of your building permit application. And then I think, what was the second half of the question?
If there were any fees associated with that separate address.
Oh, not on our end, no.
So Danielle, can I just noted from what Randy said that Council Member Angelina Benedetti has joined us as well. So I would just like to recognize and thank her as well. For those of you who don't know, Angie Benedetti was on the Planning Commission and was a force behind this program on the Planning Commission before she joined us a year ago on City Council. So thank you, Council Member Benedetti, for being here.
And Katie, can you touch on the limits of how many ADUs per lot are allowed, depending on what the acreage is of the lot?
Mm-hmm. So it is 1 ADU per primary dwelling. If you were to have a particularly large site that could be subdivided, then that option is available to you, where you could subdivide the property, have a primary dwelling on each property and an ADU on each. But you, of course, have to meet the development regulations to subdivide. So that would be the first thing that we would look at.
All right, Faye, I see your hand is raised. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yes. I noticed that the one of the frames or the models that you showed was on flat land for the ADU, and a lot of the lots parcels here in Renton are on hillsides. Is there any way for excavation to flatten the land, or is that a priority to have your land flat for an ADU?
I can jump in for this one. I think what we would do is we would have you get a grading permit first so that you could grade the site so that it's level enough for one of the ADUs to be placed there. So if you were on a steep slope, we would have an extra requirement that you would have to go through in order to get the lot so that it's flat enough to build these ADUs.
Okay. Thanks.
In the future, will there be an option to sell the ADU or primary dwelling and live in the ADU?
I can answer that. The answer is no. The accessory dwelling unit is just as the name applies. It's accessory to the primary structure. So there will be no legal ability to separate them on the same lot to sell one over the other. You know, it's considered an accessory to the primary unit and would be on the same legal lot of record, so couldn't be sold separately.
So I see that we are approaching noon or 12 o'clock. I do want to just point out that last Friday we launched a new ADU landing page. So there is a lot of information now available to you. I can put this in the chat really quickly, but it is rentonwa.gov /ADU. Alternatively, there is that page also links to a landing page that is specific to the Permit Ready ADU program. So we'll be able to have supplemental information for you there. There'll be useful links for you to access our development regulations, our informational ADU handout, previous presentations. We'll upload today's presentation to the website, and the models will also be there for you to peruse as well. And I see there are questions for the website in the chat. I'm just going to go ahead and type it there so you can copy and paste it into your browser.
I see another really good question. In the PRADU program, is the building built on site?
I can,
Yes.
oh. Yes, they're not prefabricated, they're pre-designed, but it still gets constructed like a standard on-site construction process.
Are you guys okay if I ask a question? This is Vanessa, I'm the planning director, but before we ended today, I was hoping Katie or Brittany could address when the PRADU pre-app program would actually be opened to the community. At this point in time, we haven't made those links live. You could not go on the website right now and actually apply. So if you could address that so that folks know when they can expect to be able to do this, that would be great.
So we are in the final stages of engineering. So as soon as we wrap up that leg of the work, we are ready. We're so excited to launch this program and have the first few applications come in and test this process and get some ADUs built. I have generated a list of email subscribers specifically to the PRADU program. If you are interested in signing up for updates or would like to be included on that list, I'm going to put my email address, my direct email address into the chat box. Please email me and I will add you to that list and you will receive updates as more information becomes available. But we're really just finalizing the last leg of that work, which is the engineering.
Yeah. And Katie, just in people's estimate, it's reasonable to expect that we'll have this up and operational within the next 2 weeks.
Do you have an estimate of how much an ADU will increase the value of a home? Let's say a 600 square foot ADU.
You know, Mary, I know we don't.
That may be a good question to bring up to a real estate professional in the private industry. So you can work with someone, but city staff may not be the best real estate advisors to work with.
Yeah, as Brittany said, we work with real estate people every day, but we do not play them. So we're going to refrain from commenting on that. But I've noted there are some real estate professionals as part of this meeting here today. So it'd be a good conversation to reach out to your local realtor to find out what that would mean.
All right, I see one more guest with their hand raised. So is it Nact Trand? If you would like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just had a question. I live in Renton, but I'm in the unincorporated Renton area. Would I qualify for this?
Oh. Man, I am so sorry to tell you this, but if you're in unincorporated King County, outside of Renton municipal limits, you would not be able to qualify for this.
Okay, thank you.
But I can point you to the person, Angie Matthias, who's here, if you want to talk, you and your neighbors, about annexation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
In the chat, I saw there was a question. Will there be an option for container homes?
That's not an option.
And would it be possible for someone to explain container homes for the group?
Basically, container homes is, if I understand the question correctly, it's cargo containers that have been converted to dwelling units.
Thank you.
And a guest was curious about pallet houses.
Same answer there for pallet house. These are, the conversation here today is just specifically regarding the PRADUs, the pre-reviewed accessory dwelling units, and the designs and the process and the fees associated with those.
So I've added, oh, sorry, Danielle.
No, go ahead.
I added my email address to the chat. If you would like to subscribe to our PRADU mailing list to receive updates about the program, please go ahead and send me an email and I'll make sure that you're added to the list.
All right, I see two more questions. What would be involved in removing an existing garage to build a carriage house is the first one.
So I'll answer that then. I guess it's just instead of a one-step process, it's a two-step process. It would require getting a demolition permit to remove the existing garage and then going through the PRADU process.
All right, so it looks like we're actually right at 12 o'clock. If you have any more questions that are specific to your site or anything about this program, please email. Katie put her email in the chat if you'd like to send her an email. And all right, is there anything else you wanted to share, Katie?
I think that's it. I just want to thank, it's very exciting to see so many people here. I think at one point we were pushing 90 So happy to see that there's a lot of public interest in this and that there are a lot of really good questions today. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question, or you think of something that you forgot to ask or just didn't occur to you until after we end the call, please, I put in planning customer service at rentonwa.gov. That is for general PRADU related questions or any actually planning related questions in the city. And then you can email me to be added to our PRADU mailing list. Anyone else want to say anything before we jump off?
Yeah, this is Brittany again. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for attending. And I guess as the person who you'll be meeting later to work on this program with, I'm very excited to meet you all and to help you out with your site plans. Scott and I are going to have a lot of fun chatting PRADUs with you.
Yep.
Good job, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording now.